Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review this show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined once again on a Tuesday by Blake Murphy, producer.
Blake Murphy.
First off, Blake, welcome back.
Man.
You haven't gone anywhere. You've been very busy at work here. But obviously, basketball has been pushed to the back burner.
That's the Raptors' fault.
I imagine.
That's nothing to do with me. That is the Toronto Raptors. Look, even this past weekend. So for anyone who doesn't know, I've been doing obviously fan drive time 5 to 7, but I've been doing some Jays color commentary on the radio as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got the whole Yankees series this coming weekend, which is awesome. And then obviously in this city doing a drive time show, pretty heavy hockey focus right now too.
Yeah, of course.
I haven't missed an NBA playoff game yet, though. We're okay. It's only been 3 days.
Serious?
It's only been 3 days, but we're okay. I was like double barreling last night with Oilers Kings in overtime and Kings Warriors.
This guy got Kings on both screens.
Yeah,
wow.
Kings everywhere, man.
Wow.
And Assad still beats me on the river, and I got all these Kings. That's a deep cut.
That's a super deep cut.
No,
man.
I haven't really missed out on anything at basketball. Yeah. And had the Raptors done something, had a better year, gotten out of the play-in, something like that, it would have been business as usual. But yeah, had to sacrifice a few of these Blake Murphy Tuesdays for Jays and other things.
Well, I mean, first of all, congratulations on your. Was it your play-by-play debut? I don't even know. I mean,
well, unless you count like U Sports. Back when I was at UBC a decade ago, doing men's basketball and women's hockey and rugby and all sorts of stuff, just to get reps in and make that minimum wage student money.
But minimum wage goes a long way when you're a student.
Yes.
After being a student, it does not go anywhere.
But no, that Jays Angels series was my first time doing it like legitimately. Color analyst next to Ben Wagner. It was.
How was it? I was gonna say, how was it?
It was awesome, man. It was. It's interesting to think about how different doing it for say basketball would be. And most of my experience at UBC was doing men's basketball solo.
Oh wow!
Which is it's a lot, but at least there's the pace of everything, right? There's always something to be talking about. Baseball historically, especially on the radio, is a little more like you can let the silences go, you can have a conversation and stuff. But the new pitch tempo, and I have nothing to compare it to because I never did one before, but like having that little pitch clock up on the screen and knowing, if I start a sentence right now, I only have 4 seconds to get this sentence in.
Right.
It was pretty fun. Well, it was very fun, and it was an awesome experience. I'm glad I get to do some more of them throughout the season. But yeah, trying to like in my head be like, I wonder what this would be like. Like, I wonder what this is like for Eric Smith and Paul Jones. You have a shot clock at least, but there's like something happening every 20 seconds instead of like once or twice an inning that like absolutely requires stop what you're talking about and describe what's going on.
Got you. No, it sounds like a fun challenge, but I mean, I've always known you to meet any of those when you get put in them. And, honestly, with respect to this program, you did say, I think probably a week or maybe 2 weeks out of the play-in, you were like, look, if the Raptors get to the first round, I'll be available for the show. Yeah. But anyway, that's my finale, which was a good prediction, all things considered. So, we will actually talk about Raptors basketball. And me and Alex have had this running bit where I don't want to talk about the CBA. But
we're ready, buddy.
Oh, you're ready, man. I'm seeing the
How many colors
already.
You need in this spreadsheet? By the way, I did it. So yesterday on Fan Drive Time was our first time being simulcast, like you are all the time.
Right.
And you know how I do the regular bit where I'll just like turn my screen. Well, I was sitting in that seat and I turned it. I couldn't find the camera. It was just like an awkward silence of me trying to show a graph to the
You'll get used to it.
Yeah, it's not the Raptors show quality just yet. We'll get there.
Well, this takes daily experience. No, but I mean, I think we will talk about the CBA. We'll talk about the Raptors, but I definitely want to continue our coverage on just the NBA playoffs in general. First off, kudos to you for being able to watch all of these playoff games in addition to all the other stuff that's going on. I mean, it was a lot of basketball, but it's been really, really great. I thought last night was sort of an extension of that. We'll start with the more like newsworthy one, which is the Kings going up 2-0 in their series against the Golden State Warriors. Low scoring affair, which is not what you would typically expect from these two teams. And I'm saying low scoring, even though it was 114 and 106, because both teams last game had over 120. But yeah, this game kind of had everything, really. It was so sloppy to start the game. Sacramento couldn't hit any threes at all, and the Warriors would just turn the ball over. I think they had like 12 turnovers in the first 16 minutes, which I feel like is something the Raptors would never, ever do because they don't pass that much. But yeah, I'll start here. How worried are you for the Warriors? The fact that they're down 2-0 for the first time since, well, Steph Curry in his whole era.
Yeah, they've never been down 2-0 in a series before. And I mean, that speaks a lot to their ability to bounce back, but also the fact that they've never really been, I mean, count the number of times they've been an underdog in a series on one or two fingers, right? Like when you're the champions until you're not the champions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, short of the Raptors and the one Cavs year, they've been the favorite all the way to the end. So it's interesting to see them backs against the wall like this. It's going to be especially interesting if they don't have Draymond Green available for Game 3. There is concern for sure, not in anything. Like, they could absolutely win 4 of these next 5 games and win the series. I wouldn't be incredibly surprised, but the being down 2-0 to me isn't really about they haven't faced the adversity of being down 2-0. I think it highlights that they're not as good as the older versions of the Warriors. And there is a lot of, if you dig into the numbers this season, if you even look at some of the way these first 2 games have gone, if Steph is not on the floor, they have nothing. And I love Clay, and obviously Wiggins is, still working his way back, but it's great to see him back on the court. And there are some depth guys that I really like on this team, but offensively, if they don't have Steph Curry's creation and his gravity, like, we're at a point now where even Wiggins and Clay combined to go 7 of 18 on threes, and Gary Payton II chipping in with threes, which he doesn't do.
Yeah.
Like, that's still not enough offensively on a night that Steph doesn't have it from 3. So I just think that the floor is much lower than it has been in the past, where in the past on a rough Steph night or a rough Clay night or whatever, everything else was so solid defensively and offensively. But Draymond is at this point constantly teetering on the edge of what is too much. And we saw that last night. But I think that also underlines that, Draymond is probably the biggest guy in this playoffs when it comes to, flip the switch. Like, this is what we dealt with the Cavs for years as Raptors coverage, right? Is like, all the regular season stuff, all the tape can say one thing, but you have this kind of reserve level of respect of, okay, he could turn it on, they can turn it on when they need to.
Right.
And I don't think we've seen that from Draymond yet. And he's in his 30s now, and he might miss this next game. And yeah, I know there are some people who have him on their all defense ballot and like very smart basketball people. I don't have a vote, but I don't think he would have cracked my all defense ballot on for the season. And that inability to reach back and get to that level at either end of the floor, and that inability to, it's the Draymond line right now. Eventually it's going to be the Dillon Brooks line. Game 1 of the Leaf series tonight, it's the Michael Bunting line of, you can be a pest up to this point, and it's really good because it takes the other team off their game, and your team can kind of rally behind it in he's annoying for another team, but I love playing with him way. But the second you go a quarter of an inch the other side of that line, you're a net negative for your team. And that doesn't happen with Draymond very often, but I thought that was the case last night, even before the stomp. It's something that, so far Dillon Brooks has done a better job. And it's funny to see the highlight going around of, like, someone brought up that there was a play last year in the playoffs where Dillon Brooks got basically like put in the figure 4, and he just went like this to the ref and like walked it off. And like, if Dillon Brooks can walk away from that moment and not throw a fit and stomp on someone, like, what are you doing, Draymond? And there are a lot of what are you doing Draymonds for that moment. But anyway, yeah, all of this is to say that Steph, I think, can throw it back at any time he needs to, and he's still that guy at that level. Clay is at least as a secondary scorer at that level, but right now with Wiggins still working some of the rust off, with Draymond Green not finding that switch yet, and some of these bench guys just not looking good. Like DiVincenzo and Poole have been bad.
Oh my goodness. No one frustrates me more than Jordan Poole. Like, he's not even on the Raptors, and I'm mad at him.
Yeah, and I get it.
He would get so many angry react pods, Jordan Poole.
The Warriors have this weird thing where, like, none of their role players can play at all on the road, and then at home they're all ridiculous. So maybe they win the next 2, and those guys have big games. But right now it looks pretty dicey. And I think as much as anything about the Warriors, if there was any, like, residual Kings disrespect from basketball fans or whatever, wondering if this offense first and offense second team could get it done in the playoffs.
I don't know. Their defense was pretty good. Yes.
Pretty good opening arguments here from them.
Yeah, I mean, first off, let's just get to the Draymond topic. You talk about like, you know, staying short of that line. I mean, he firmly stomped his way over that line. Like,
should we? I know we can't show video highlight. What if Derek comes in here and we just like reenact it?
I'm good, man. Derek's got like a bunch of kids. They rely on him.
It's just like it went full like Stone Cold Steve Austin, hands on the ropes in the turnbuckle, just stomping away at him.
It was man. Look, I will say, watching from the Warriors' perspective, like I don't know what caused Sabonis to fall down in the first place, and I don't think it was just purely he was grabbing his face in protection. So I do think he did grab Draymond's ankle. However, that is not a way to respond to being grabbed by the ankle.
No, like
and Draymond clearly flew off the handle.
If he grabbed his ankle to grab his ankle, if he grabbed his ankle because he thought there was a scrum for the loose ball and that was a little bit of an advantage, if he grabbed his ankle purely because there's a foot near my head and I want to, whatever the explanation, you cannot respond by stomping. And then I think he made it way worse for himself in terms of like league punishment and stuff, of spending that entire review time like cutting a promo, like acting like he's the baddest man in the world, and it was not that big a deal that he just stomped someone in the chest.
Yeah, that was honestly psychotic from Draymond. I mean, like, again, like, I understand, right? Like, I actually see it from the perspective of Sabonis shouldn't have pulled him in the first place, but that is no way to respond. I also think it's just kind of dangerous, to be honest, in this day and age, to be like going back and forth with the crowd like that. Because like, it really just takes one incident and you're really screaming at like tens of thousands of people in that kind of moment. Like, I obviously there are security measures put into place, but like realistically, there's like what, 50 security members in the building entirely?
And they're all worried about E40, so they can't even focus on
of course. So like, you know, there's that aspect. I just think that it just all comes across as really unhinged. Not to mention the fact that like it was a close game in the fourth quarter once again. You need Draymond out there, even though he's, you know, being like this. And now there's a real risk that he gets suspended. In fact, it'd be kind of disappointing if he doesn't get suspended.
Here's the other thing. All that crowd stuff is like, if this game were in Oakland, or I guess in San Francisco now, I get it, right? Like, at least then you're making sure the crowd stays loud. You're behind late in a game, and maybe there's a recognition that you might be about to get tossed, and you're trying to make sure the crowd can, you know, pick up your guys the rest of the way. When you're doing that on the road, that crowd was already ludicrously good for the first 1.9 games, right? To give them that extra juice, and then the like cherry on top for that crowd of, you got tossed. You did all that talking during that break and melting off with the crowd, and you lost that battle. Yeah, you're out of here. Like that. Not that crowd needed it anymore, but you handed it to him. And Draymond, to me, is like he understands this stuff so well. I'm pretty surprised, stomp aside, that he like played into, if Draymond were on the Sacramento Kings, that's exactly what he would have been trying to get the other team to do in front of his home crowd. And he played right into it.
No, it was just, it's got to be very disappointing from the Warriors' perspective, because I feel like there's clearly so many good things that Draymond does, and he's obviously a very, very integral core piece of their 4 titles. But at the same time, like, you just cannot fly off the handle. As you mentioned, there's a very clear line, and he just continues to step over it, stomp over it. By the way, Draymond last night missed out narrowly with a 5x5. Just came one rebound short, because he had 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 turnovers, 5 personal fouls, and 8 points. So like the Warriors don't even have depth really to replace him, right? So again, I'm anticipating he's going to get suspended. Adam Silver was in the crowd last night. I wonder what he was thinking during all of this. He's like, I don't have to deal with this when I'm managing Mickey Mouse in my next job.
It's interesting too that like the way this series has played out, one of the things I think people were concerned about for the Kings was, okay, well, you start Sabonis, who that's fine because obviously he's incredible and you're starting him at the 5, but you bring Alex Len off the bench and you bring Trey Lyles off the bench. Yeah. Like, though, that is a front court as a bench duo or with one of those guys next to Sabonis that you'd be like, oh, the Warriors are like custom made to take advantage of that. Like, you don't want Alex Len defending in space against high Steph pick and rolls. But when Draymond is not that effective, and Looney, I love him. I know he's like Iron Man to end all Iron Man. Like, we saw him come back with one shoulder in the NBA
Kawhi
Finals.
literally punctured his lung. Like
But-
that's actually Kawhi did more damage with his shoulder than Draymond did with his foot in terms of the damage to the ribs. Anyway,
But you see last night, like Looney and Green both in foul trouble, and they don't have a lot to turn to. They clearly don't have the trust level with Kuminga.
Mhm.
I don't think Green has. They certainly don't seem to think Green has that at this time. And you're left with Gary Payton II, who probably their third best player last night, like playing kind of pseudo center.
sure, yeah. The little big man, that's what they call him out there.
I mean, that was the way the 905 used him in a deep playoff run. Was he's basically the power forward.
He would fit nicely here, and he was literally right here. I think from the Kings' perspective, just real quickly, De'Aaron Fox just continues to be like one of the most clutch players in the fourth quarter.
He'll get announced clutch player of the year tonight, right? It's got to be him.
He has to be.
No disrespect to DeMar, but
no. Listen, 11 points in the fourth quarter yesterday from De'Aaron Fox. He scored a ton in the fourth quarter in game one as well. I mean, this is just what he's been doing all season. But I also think that just Mike Brown in general, like obviously he's already been announced as like the coach of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's interesting that coaches have their own coach of the year, and then the media has a coach of the year too. But he's going to win both. And really, he deserves 2 Coach of the Year awards because, like, I can't believe what I'm seeing with my eyes. Alex Len was a Tampa Raptor cast-off after, like, 4 games. This guy there was one game where he came in and he hit 3 threes out of the corner, and the Raptors beat the Knicks in Tampa. And then after that, he got into the starting lineup, and Nick would do this thing where he was starting for literally 5 minutes, and then he wouldn't play for the next 43 minutes of the game. And then he was cut right away. To see that man come into this series and actually have productive minutes, and we're not talking about all the minutes in the world, but you tell me you can give me like 8 to 10 solid playoff minutes, that's incredible. So shout out to Mike Brown. He's literally doing the impossible. There's no way Alex Len should be contributing in a playoff setting.
I thought his rotations have been really good as well. He's obviously got a couple different guards and a couple different combos that he can use, right? Where they bring Off Night and Monk off the bench, but you can mix and match them with Murray and Fox to make sure you've got a blend of offensive defense. I actually thought Davion Mitchell has done just an unbelievable job defensively through 2 games. And like, I know Steph's going to get his numbers, but like,
he's working though. He's working hard for those
that's
numbers.
the hardest assignment in basketball still is chasing Steph around.
Right.
And
he's literally in the Delhi role. He's being coached by Delhi, who's on the roster too.
Yeah, that's what was it, Alex? Called him the human bed bug?
Yeah, Delhi's just in the corner there with like a carafe of coffee, just ready to give him more and more energy at all times.
Yeah,
that's what Delhi.
Yeah, and I mean, good Malik Monk minutes so far too. A guy like a former future Raptor, Malik Monk. A guy.
How many times did you and Eric Kareem advocate for Malik Monk to be added to the Raptors?
A couple times, especially. He was like my favorite target for the Norm Powell trade. Before LaMelo Ball got hurt that year, it had been rumored that the Hornets were looking to trade like one of their younger guys, whether it was Monk or PJ Washington or whatever, for help now because they wanted to push and make the playoffs. But then LaMelo got hurt,
right?
And that kind of went away. And then the Lakers got Malik Monk for nothing to rehab his value. Anyway, Malik Monk wasn't this guy yet, so who knows? Maybe it doesn't even work out that way anyway. But nice to see him, and just the job that they have done up and down the roster. Even last night, like Keegan Murray gave them next to nothing, but they still, productive minutes. Their starters still hung in okay. The fact that they're able to do this and win games against the Warriors of all teams, as they're bringing along and developing young pieces who are going to be a part of that core rotation for a long time too. Like I know Kevin Huerter hasn't had a very good couple games as a shooter, but that's a guy who's still only 24 too. Like this is a foundation laying playoff series. And I know that, like in Toronto, for example, like 10 years into this era, making the first round and getting bounced doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Sure.
For this Sacramento Kings team, if they lost this series, that would still be so great developmentally to have the season that they had and to go through the series. And now they're probably going to win the series as well. It's awesome.
Yeah. The stats are already out there. That's like 92% of teams up 2-0 end up winning the series. Going over to the other series that's also at 2-0 right now. So the Sixers beat the Nets once again. Interesting first half. I thought the Nets really implemented a better strategy of doing a better job of racing up the floor and getting quick shots. And obviously Cam Johnson was really leading the way in terms of the scoring. It's just like him or Mikal Bridges just take turns being like, oh my God, he can really do all this scoring. Where was this in Phoenix? But my worry was always that, like, okay, they're going to run out of steam because it takes a lot of energy to play this way. And then eventually the Sixers are going to, not turn the ball over all the time or at least hit some open threes. Embiid, I thought, did a better job of handling the double teams. And yeah, eventually they just crushed them. I just came away feeling like, is this how we looked when we played the Sixers in games 1 and 2?
I think a little bit, because part of why the Nets look so gassed late in these games is, first of all, they've tightened the rotation down to 8.
Yep.
And that's with like Joe Harris only nominally in the rotation, even though,
I mean, he's barely doing anything though. I get that.
but this is why you have to look at single game plus minus with like a lot of context. Joe Harris was plus 19 in 13 minutes last night. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, I was going to say,
because
he
he
was doing nothing.
He did not play well.
They were just running around.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think the Nets might be well served to expand the rotation a little bit here. I'd like to see Utah get a little bit of a look. We know he can.
This is exactly us through 2 games last year. If we're talking about, we got to see Utah a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
goodness.
they shot 31% on a high volume of threes last night, and they don't have a lot of defenders that they trust right now.
Sure.
I think he could maybe have a way. Like, I don't know if they dust off Cam Thomas and just try to get hot off the bench, because like obviously in a game that's 96-84, defending Joel Embiid is going to be your primary focus, but you can't score 84 points in a NBA game and expect to do anything. So credit to them for and to Jacques Vaughn for having a fun, well-executed defensive strategy to limit Joel Embiid as a scorer. But your guys are exhausted and you have nothing offensively. Like this, the Nets are kind of what I was saying about the Kings in that, yeah, this is something they can build off and good experience, but that's it. There is no chance they're winning this series. The gap here is a little too large.
Yeah, no, and I think that, look, the talent level might just be so large the strategy doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to see them maybe take a different approach. I just think, having obviously watched the Sixers very closely in the playoffs because of the last year's playoff series with Toronto, and also just watching them in general, like, I think they are really well equipped to handle Joel Embiid getting double teamed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really allows the whole team to get going. Their passing is a lot better. Joel's passing has gotten a lot better. I thought his passing from game 1 and game 2 was much more accurate. And yeah, overall, it's just like they're gonna destroy you. And then eventually, when you get super tired and your double teams aren't as like quick and snappy, Joel Embiid's just gonna kill you at the end. Like I'm just seeing what happened to the Raptors last year happen to a different team now.
And what you're seeing right now in this series too, especially last night, is something that the Raptors got a taste of, and we were all kind of like, "Ooh, if this is for real, this is trouble in the Eastern Conference." In that, part of the idea of taking Embiid away as a scorer is trying to bait James Harden into being a scorer that he's not all that comfortable being anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But now he doesn't have to be that, because Tyrese Maxey is just like everything that we saw game-to-game glimpses of last year is just like who he is now. And I know as the playoffs progress and like against Boston, they're going to have defensive limitations with Tyrese Maxey that he's either got to lock into another level or they're going to have to manage around.
Sure.
But against a team like Brooklyn, where again, unless you bring Cam Thomas in off the bench to try to trade buckets for buckets, like Tyrese Maxey can have his way in this series without having to do a ton defensively. So you kind of get to, like, if you're Philly, you get to concede, okay, Embiid won't be a scorer, and you don't have to make Harden that scorer. It's kind of, you know, playing into not their preferred strategy, because I think they'd rather Embiid get 40, 20, and 10, but they're very comfortable playing that way. And that's with, you know, PJ Tucker giving them next to nothing offensively, and the bench really not doing, I mean, only they had 15 points off the bench yesterday, and it was almost all DeAnthony Melton and G League MVP Paul Reed. Yeah.
Well, real quickly, what do you feel about the nickname B-Ball Paul? Do you feel like your nickname should be your job?
If it rhymes, and if like you've self-described yourself as B-Ball Paul for a long time, like I think in his case,
like which Paul is that? Oh, it's B-Ball Paul. Got you.
His specific role, like he is a bench guy who like
it can't be your job. Man.
No, I like it. Like I think it's better than like playoff P for Paul George or something like that. Like I think just guys named Paul don't have a good nickname, I guess. But I don't know, man. I'm riding with the G League MVP. That's he can be B-Ball Paul all he wants.
No, man. Shouts to Paul Reed, which is a perfectly fine name. Like your name is so short; it's 2 syllables. You don't need a nickname at that point.
You don't. This is like this is an issue in the NBA in general that people try to force nicknames. Like I'll never get over people trying to come up with a nickname for a guy whose first name is OG.
Right. Yeah.
What do we do? He has the coolest first name you can have. Anyway, his first name is like a nickname that other people get.
Yeah, exactly.
It's I don't know. B-Ball Paul's all right with me.
Shouts to B-Ball Paul. Though.
Yeah.
Brought some energy.
You see, he did the live rights to Ricky Sanchez event, like heading into the playoffs too.
Really?
Yeah, so he's riding high off the rights to Ricky. This is
All right.
just a good lesson for any Raptors heading into the playoffs next year.
Right.
You do a fan-friendly live show right before the playoffs. You have
Hey,
some
man.
big playoff moments.
Well,
Just saying.
Did Bobby have a good play in?
Well, he wasn't on the court. Nick didn't give him run. We know Bobby's
Sorry,
a shooter.
Bobby. Thank you for doing the live show once again. Yeah, no, I mean, I just don't think this is the way to approach the Sixers. But listen, the Sixers obviously were never going to have issues with this series. I do wonder, though, how they're going to match up against Boston because, like, James Harden can't be as bad as he was last night and get away with it against Boston. Like, James Harden had the Russell Westbrook 3 in 19 games without any of the positives.
Yeah.
He was so bad watching it, man. I was like,
And
yeah,
like
I can't
compare
believe
the
this.
jump in like backcourt defensive quality that you're going to go in from this
Sure,
Nets.
yeah.
And again, love the effort level the Nets have. Dorian Finney-Smith,
Mhm.
good defender. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie. Like these are all guys who give you a good effort and can defend. Royce O'Neal got pancaked a couple times yesterday, but like these are good defensive players. The jump in like point of attack defense going to this Celtics team that brings like two potential all defense guys off the bench. I don't think life's going to be as easy for Tyrese Maxey, and I think it could be borderline hell for James Harden if he doesn't rediscover that ability to score in addition to pass.
Yeah, and unlike the other teams, I feel like the Celtics are better at mostly letting Joel play one-on-one, letting him tire out, and then shutting down the rest of the group.
Because like I know that he's slowed a little bit too, but like Horford's one of the guys you're comfortable with that, right? And
Sure, yeah.
I know Robert Williams will be in the mix there as well, and you
There's
like
a
him.
lot of Grant Williams as well. They just keeping
Yeah.
Grant Williams on the side right now. They're not even playing him against the Hawks. They're like, don't worry, man. Just be in the spot all day and get ready to go to battle against Joel.
Man,
But
that Hawks team does. This is a tough thing with the play-in. Like the play-in games have been so fun year over year,
Yeah.
and it changes the incentives late in the regular season that it's absolutely a worthwhile thing in my opinion. But the Hawks look so overmatched. It's like it's not even close. Even the like
the
I
play-in
didn't
is
think
the peak of your season.
I didn't think the Nuggets like were exceptional in that Wolves game, and the Wolves didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, but I guess the Lakers can hang in with the Grizzlies, and maybe the Heat can steal another injured game off the Bucks or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah, you
we're
never know.
we're still yet to see a play-in team go past 6 games when they actually get into the playoffs. So I do a lot of Leafs jerseys around the office. I do wonder if I don't think the league would go away from it. I think it's been too big a success, but at some point we're going to need one of these teams to win. Like we need the play-in version of the We Believe Warriors, right, to knock off the Mavs.
Well, I mean, like this is what's supposed to happen in the West, I would say. I guess technically the Lakers could technically be this.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
And they've got that favorable Lakers scheduling where, the banged up old team gets 2 days off after the first playoff game.
Wow.
Oh,
Adam Silver, how could you?
yeah.
How could you? All right.
Disney won't stand for this. You can't load manage Mickey Mouse like this.
No, Daffy's going to be upset. All right, we're going to take a break.
Is that Disney too? Are we crossing?
I don't even know, man. I don't watch that stuff. I didn't grow up here. I'm your host, Wolu, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, we'll talk actual Raptors basketball. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wayne Malou. I continue to be joined by Blake Murphy. I can't believe we didn't mention this, but Joel Embiid threw a random shot at Nick Nurse. You know, he was just talking about something post-game after winning game 2 where he had another great game. And Embiid just said, quote, they kind of took the Nick Nurse route of begging for free throws in reference to Jacques Vaughn. Never seen Jacques Vaughn slander, but I guess we got to use Nick Nurse's name to do it. What do you think?
I mean, it's funny. I appreciate the grudge holding and the pettiness.
Yeah.
Sure. Like that was the conversation this time last year, right? In the first round.
Sure. Yeah. It was.
Do I have to call you a wambulance?
I mean, you know, what about Sad Boy Joel?
Yeah.
That's going to be next round, I guess. We'll save that for.
This
for
is the thing
series.
is like you can trash talk back a little bit, but like the Raptors' big W over him was like 4 years ago now. It feels a little empty to be like, yeah, but also he hasn't gotten over the hump still. So
that's fair.
I don't know. I'm a little torn. I like it kind of feels like that's something you should get to say once you've like had a meaningful defeat over the team that knocked you out and, you know, derailed your airplane or whatever. But also, I don't know. He just hasn't had that opportunity. I don't know. It's just whatever.
No, it's just,
I thought the
it's just
Jaren
funny.
Jackson comment was funnier.
You know, maybe it's just like, I mean, it's not maybe. It's definitely just because I'm an Embiid hater because he's been frustrated to play against. But like, there is this like certain darkness about him where it's just harder for like the casual fan to jump in and root for him. Like, you know what I mean? Like Tyrese Maxey, obviously he's torched the Raptors, but I love that guy. You know what I mean? Like, and when he's not playing the Raptors, I will root for him and I will root for him to succeed. Like,
I mean, I think
Steph,
a lot goes
like,
into it.
I'm excited for Steph.
I
Like,
think
I'm
a lot
excited for
goes into it.
Giannis.
Like
when
Embiid is the biggest player in the league, first of all, right? Like it's.
But then he
so-
also drops, and then about the free throws. So like,
Right.
you know, and Nick Nurse should talk about the next time, being like, hey man, they took the Joel Embiid approach to flopping your free throws. Like,
But
you know,
this is what I'm saying is like I think some of these things add up to make him not a natural baby face, right? It's like, well, you're the biggest guy in the fight,
Yeah.
so you're not an underdog, and you have, you know, you're not new to the scene. You've been in this scene for 7-8 years. There's also some residual, I think, people dislike the 76ers because of the process era / you know, Hinkie on the PR side of the league, image side wasn't the best, and then James Harden certainly isn't the most liked guy in the league. Daryl Morey certainly isn't. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit a victim of the circumstances that have surrounded him the last, I mean, his entire career, really, from the process to the Colangelo stuff to Harden and Doc and all this stuff. There is also, though, an element of like, yeah, if you want all of it to end, you could just win. You're the best player in the world when you're on. So I don't know. I understand your side of it. I still, since the moment I saw him teary-eyed after that game in Toronto in 2019,
right.
there is just like a small part of my brain that has set aside the scenario that Embiid eventually tires in Philadelphia and wants out, and Toronto is where he lands. He goes to the place that broke him in the first place, and so I can't.
mean, that would be nice.
I
What can
can't go
say?
full
I'm gonna say
slander
no?
because I'm leaving like a 1% chance that the Raptors rescue him at some point.
Got you. Same 1% chance we have at Wemby this summer.
I picked my percentages carefully. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Pretty good. Another thing we forgot to mention out top. I think we're just gonna do a running like tally of this. Just another day goes by without the Masai Ujiri sees anything press conference. The Raptors flamed out a week ago now. It was Wednesday. It is Tuesday now. Last Wednesday. So, what do you think is the cause of the delay, Blake?
Well, I can tell you what the cause of the delay is, and it's
okay.
just they want more time to kind of sit back and evaluate things before they speak publicly. And, you know, Masai, even when he's done the immediate pressers in the past, has told us straight up on mic and off mic, I don't like doing these right away. I'm still emotional. You know, there has to be some time to let the rational win out. And I think that, you know,
Okay.
I think that's legitimately a part of it. I also think there is a level of awkwardness that we have to appreciate, that you can go back to the year they moved off of Dwayne Casey for Nick Nurse, where the media cycle for that was very convoluted, and like they basically spoke too soon and then had to run it back to do the we've let Dwayne go, and then months later do a Nick Nurse intro press conference. I think if there's any amount of uncertainty still about Nick Nurse's future, and I say that as we hear things like Ime Udoka, who had been tied to the Raptors, is now interviewing for the Rockets job tomorrow. A number of other names have been thrown at that. I've kind of thought throughout the Nick Nurse rumor process that even if the Rockets stuff was legitimate, it would make sense for someone in Nick Nurse's position to wait and see how the first round of the playoffs play out, just in case another
anyone should
interesting
take
job.
that job until they see the lottery results.
But you can't. I don't think the Rockets are going to want to wait until late May. And if you're the Rockets, do you really want to hire a coach who was only in it if you got Wemby?
I mean, can't blame a man.
You can't. I would be asking to do the same thing. But if I'm the Rockets at a certain point, like probably by the end of the first round, I'm pressing, being like, look, we have to lay out an entire offseason plan for our young guys. We have to start building a new scheme and strategy. We have to start evaluating these draft prospects in case we don't get the number 1 or number 2 pick and start to make those decisions. You want a coach in for all of that stuff. So if I'm the Rockets, I probably want to get that done around the time the first round of the playoff ends. And if I'm an Ime Udoka or Nick Nurse, I'm probably keeping an eye on if any jobs are going to open up at the end of this round. Then you get moving on things. So my read on the Raptors not doing anything yet is a combination of, the Nick Nurse thing looms, and they probably understand that all the questions would be about Nick Nurse, and there's not entirely clarity on that yet. I think that's probably the logical way to look at it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I'd like to imagine that not too far from us here in the studio is Masai and Bobby on the phone with a sign and trade for a coach right now, which is essentially what might potentially happen. I mean,
sign and trade.
I'm still hoping that, I guess it would just be a trade in this case, but like,
you're hoping to wrangle like a second round pick or something.
Anything, just say anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just so like down the line,
it has to be picks because you're not allowed to trade players for coaches.
That's fine with me. I'm happy to take a pick.
You are allowed to get pick compensation. I do wonder if another team would call the Raptors bluff and be like, he's got 1 year left on his deal, getting paid a lot of money. Are you really going to quibble over a second round pick and instead pay this guy, $8, $9, $10 million to be a lame duck head coach and spend an entire season answering questions about it, or paying him to go home? If I'm another team, I'm calling their bluff on it. But the Rockets also have like a bajillion second round picks.
That's what I'm saying. Just toss this one. We could get this done already.
Also, I know you want to talk CBA stuff. Second round picks going to like nudge back to having slightly more value under one of the new CBA wrinkles. It kind of upsetting that the Raptors have none, because now there is a salary cap exception where you'll be able to. So prior, if you drafted a guy in the second round, you could only sign him to a 2-year deal, or you could sign him to anything, but you needed a chunk of your mid-level exception to go past 2 years.
Right, we saw that with Christian Koloko this summer.
Exactly. They saved a chunk of their mid-level. They actually did an interesting thing with Christian Koloko where they gave him more than the minimum this year, and the reason that they were willing to do that is you get 2 very team-friendly years after. So what this new CBA wrinkle will allow you to go 3 and 4 years for your own second-round pick. So there will be in purely CBA terms, there was no difference before between the number 60 pick and the top undrafted free agent if you knew you could sign that guy, right?
Right.
All that a second round pick really did was give you dibs on that guy versus having to negotiate as an undrafted free agent. Now there will be a little bit more CBA value in keeping your own second round picks, which I think is a good change because it helps teams, it helps players, it incentivizes player development, and I don't know if we'll see 55 second round picks traded at the trade deadline again because they actually have a little bit more value than just currency.
Do you think that might be part of the reason why we saw so many second round picks get moved?
That teams knew this was coming?
Yeah. Or had an inkling that this was coming?
No,
that was the go-to trade package.
I think this is a correction to that, actually.
Oh,
I think what teams have shown us with the trades and throwing second round picks around a lot, including the Raptors, is that we know what the talent curve is like in the draft, right? And it starts way up here and then it very quickly goes like that. And around pick 20 or 25, the marginal gain, it's part of why the Raptors were so comfortable trading out of the first round into the second round and getting Koloko, because in their eyes, and Bobby Webster told us this before the draft, basically, they don't see a huge difference between the type of player you would get at 20 and the type of player you would get at 35. I know that there are a couple of very interesting guys that go in that range this year. Some who will be on Rookie of the Year ballots.
Walker Kessler, Andrew Nembhard.
Who's to say that the Raptors weren't just going to take Koloko in the 20s anyway? Pascal was projected to go in the mid 40s, mid to late 40s, and they took him 27, right? Anyway, so I actually think this is a correction from the league side, because teams have clearly said with their actions that even with the value we all place on the G League and player development, it's not like if we can get something back for a second round pick, that's fine because we'll just sign guys undrafted. And we'll see guys like Fred VanVleet or Terrence Davis or whoever basically negotiate their way out of the draft once it passes a certain point. Because like if all you're going to offer me is a two-way deal,
That's fair.
yeah. So
No,
I think
fair.
this is a bit of a correction.
Well, we're already on the subject already. You know, Alex kept teasing me throughout all of last week when some of the CBA details are starting to get leaked, or even the week before that, about we're going to have to talk about CBA on this program. I just wanted to talk about the basketball portion, but now that you're here with
And
your
there's no
spreadsheets-
basketball. There's no Toronto Raptors basketball.
You're right. You're right. Because my other idea was just sort of helping me with my column. I'm going to finally write this like magnum opus 10 things on the season. It's already 5 pages on Google Docs. This is not going to get
What do we got
published.
for word count? 5 pages means nothing.
Let me see my Control Shift C. Okay, right now it's not even that much. It's like 2,216. But I'm only through like 5 things. So
Yeah,
it'll end up like 5,000.
Yeah.
At the end of it.
Break it up into 2 parts, whatever. Get double content out of it.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea.
Can we do co-bylines here? We should team up on some of this stuff. I'll do
want
the
to?
cap. I'll do the little cap sentences at the end, and you can
all right.
you can 10 things it. No, I'm really looking forward to that. And I will have, so obviously I have my annual free agency primer that comes out. Last year, I think we timed it around the start of the conference finals. Full disclosure, where we're sitting right now with the CBA stuff, I know it's been announced. I know details leak out and stuff like that. It's not done.
Like, can you explain that portion?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you know, to announce we have an agreement is like all the high level stuff, and you know there won't be a work stoppage, and you have technically you have a year buffer because this CBA doesn't expire until June 30th of next year.
Okay.
And what they're going through right now, this is what they'd call the term sheet phase, where you know, people on the agency side, the team side, even some media like Mike Vorkunov has had some stuff, and Shams obviously gets a bunch of it. They are getting, you know, some of the details as they come out, and you know, it almost feels like they're negotiating pocket at a time, right? So 3 a.m. in New York, the night that they announce we got a CBA. I would imagine that was, hey, here are the 3 biggest items we're still quibbling over, and they're the most important ones.
Okay.
Those are done. Let's go home and get some sleep, and then like 2 days from now, we'll all have breakfast and start getting down to the real details of like what happens with the two-way player in restricted free agency. That's not something that's holding up a CBA deal. That's the kind of stuff that they're still going through now, and that's why you're seeing things like the specifics around the 65 game minimum for awards, or the specifics around these new second round pick rules and things like that. These things are trickling out because the term sheets are still being developed. We're only 9 weeks out from free agency. So the time crunch that the league is going to run up against, and I've heard some teams and people on the agency side say that it's at this point, it's probably still just a point of curiosity. But as we get closer to that July 1st deadline, you need time to prepare for these changes, right?
Yeah,
and alter your offseason strategy. What's not immediately clear is if some of these changes that we've heard are going to be effective July 1st, 2023, or July 1st, 2024, or in the case of some of these 2-tiered tax systems and penalizing you by dropping your draft pick if you are in the tax, you know, twice. If you're a repeater tax team, suddenly it affects your draft stock and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that it wouldn't really be fair to the Warriors to say, hey, July 1st, 2023, this stuff's in place because you have been building as if that's not a thing. So we're still trying to figure out and still waiting to hear the timing on some of these changes too. So that's kind of the biggest hurdle for me right now in doing my big salary cap primer is I don't think any of these big changes really affect things for the Raptors that much. Like how an unrestricted free agent like a Fred, Gary, or Jakob are treated is not going to materially change. Like both of those guys, or all 3 of those guys are beyond the mid-level exception amount. So even though that's going up, it doesn't really affect them that much.
Yeah,
we'll see if sign and trade stuff changes at all. That could affect obviously their market and their ability to leverage the Raptors, or the Raptors' willingness to play ball on those things. But I think big picture, what I wrote post deadline about re-signing those 3 guys and the flexibility the team has under the tax and how else they could add to the roster will remain the same. The takeaways from that piece will remain the same. It's just the specific numbers that might change a little bit. I don't think the Raptors are actually in this weird spot where, yes, all these changes are important and will affect their long-term planning and stuff like that. But for this specific offseason, other than like maybe giving them a few extra creative paths to add to this roster, I don't know that I don't know that it changes much for Fred, Jakob, and Gary. And obviously everything flows from those three decisions.
Yeah. I mean, we covered the extension portion with OG.
Yeah. Like that's the thing, but it's also, he's not eligible till October 1st. So like we can take all the time in the world. Nothing that we've seen reported so far affects discussions around Pascal's extension. That's still the same as before. The only thing is like, we know now, I think I can safely say he's not going to make all NBA.
Yeah, he's not.
If he sneaks onto third team, then it becomes a more complicated thing because he's eligible for a supermax. I don't think he is.
I've seen the ballots. I mean, I've seen the ballots. I've seen the running Google Docs thing.
I was gonna say this guy hacked the league office.
No, I did not do that to who does it? Ernst & Young? That was Alex's previous job.
Yeah, Ernst & Young does the ping pong balls.
Oh, so who does this one?
I don't know who does the awards vote. I think it's just online. Like if you're a media voting member, you get a link and you just click all your things. And
I thought there was more security that went into this, but
nah. No, because most of the people like release their ballots publicly.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, I mean, based on those, like, yeah, Pascal's just not on a lot of those. Okay, I mean, so maybe I'll then pivot to this conversation about sort of like what some of the key decisions will be on some of the players this summer. Now, the five guys that are of relevance, I would say, especially in the summertime right now, are Fred, Yak, and Gary, given that they're unrestricted free agents, or can be as long as Fred and Gary turn down their player options. And then OG and Pascal are extension eligible. That's like, at minimum, that's 4 core guys. You want to put Gary in there, that's 5 core guys.
And even if you don't want to put Gary as a core guy, it's still a core asset, right? Because you traded Norman Powell for him, and then you rolled that over with a pretty player-friendly deal under the idea that either he'll continue to get better and this will be a good deal, or you can turn him into a different asset later. Like I know we don't like talking about players as assets or lines on a balance sheet or whatever, but this is the time of year for it. And to have turned Norman Powell into a couple years of Gary Trent Jr. and then see him walk because you gave him a player option a year early, I don't know. Those are the big decisions. And then the smaller ones are, can you find a home for Otto Porter Jr.'s $6.3 million player option? Because that loosens up some of these tight tax things you're dealing with.
Can we find his toe first? Like, first and foremost, can we find it?
That's almost $1 million per toe now that he's got only 9.
Yeah, in Canadian dollars, I think it actually is. Yeah, I mean, obviously you have the option with that, and you know, is Precious also
not an option with that? It's just $1 million guaranteed.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah. So you got to guarantee on that. Precious, I think, is he extension eligible based off his rookie scale?
Yes,
because he's after year 3.
Yeah, him and Malachi both. If you want to talk Malachi,
right.
Those are ones that you don't have to you don't have to worry about the Precious, and I mean, if you worry about the Malachi one, you got other problems. But those are like, those things get done in October, not in July generally, unless you're a max guy and a team's trying to lock you up.
Fair. Okay, so I'm sure we're gonna have longer, more detailed discussions, but maybe even just for the sake of helping my column here, let's just quickly go through a minute each on these 5 guys in terms of what you think will happen and what do you think the Raptors should do. What do you think the Raptors will do with Fred this summer?
I think they'll keep him. I think, he's probably going to be looking for about $30 million. I think the Raptors would love for that number to be in more like the 26, 27 range. I think he rehabbed most of his value by the end of the year, but he's still kind of an up and down guy who's a little on the older end for first get the bag unrestricted free agent.
You're giving him full term, 4 years?
I think you're going to have to. Maybe you try to quibble and get like a partially guaranteed final year, but that's going to be the market, right? Like, that's you look at some of his contract comparables and stuff in a very weak free agent class. Someone's going to give him that. The big question with Fred, honestly, is what are the new rules around sign and trades? Because if contending teams that are into the tax can no longer sign and trade for guys, that takes away some of Fred's leverage going elsewhere.
Fair. This is bad management on my part because I could have saved more time for this segment. Pascal, you extending him?
Yeah, probably, but it's not high on my priority list. I need to figure out the other directional stuff. Of course. I think he's extend and trade is not really a very likely thing given the rules around the CBA, but I do think that locking him up, even if you plan to hit the eject button at some point, and this is my thinking with Fred as well, is having that guy locked up it's an easier scenario to deal him with than just losing him or trying to trade him with no leverage.
Yeah, this one's pretty simple on my part. I would extend him, and then we can make the decision down the line. But it's going to have more value when he has multiple years on that deal. Jakob Poeltl?
Yeah, he's probably back. I think he probably, last I heard, he wants about 20 mil. I think the Raptors probably hope that comes in around like 16, 17.
Okay, close enough.
Yeah, he's a guy that like that's
like
going to feel.
Is that like a 4-year thing? Is that a 3-year thing?
Yeah, and that's where you quibble, right? And it's like that's it's going to feel like a little bit much initially because there are good centers out there who make less, but there are also a lot of bad centers out there or teams with no centers like the Raptors.
Yeah.
And you see the value. Like he'll be entirely tradable if need be on a deal like that, right? He's in that Steven Adams, Jonas tier of salary.
Fair. Gary? I know you're not the biggest fan of Gary. And towards the end of the season, I see why.
Yeah, I wouldn't phrase it that way. I just think that it's the fit that I find most awkward to if you're worried about paying
Nick Nurse
all of
literally
these
said,
guys.
you either fit us or you don't.
Yeah,
So
and his
it's
defense like really went the wrong direction this year.
No, they were attacking him like fully. Their strategy was intentionally attacking him in the play-in.
And that was the Philly series last year too, which is why
Exactly.
I was like, I had a little bit of trouble with Raptors fans mad that Gary Trent didn't get all defense votes. And it's
You
like,
can't be mad at them. Everyone just wants to see someone on the Raptors hit threes, and Gary can
Yeah.
absolutely hit threes.
Look,
so
and it's
you
a
can paper
weird
over
spot
all the
where
other gaps.
his skill set is really needed on the Raptors, right? But the fit when you start talking about a $20 million guy, when there are guys out there who do similar things for half the bag, right? There aren't a lot of them, but you can find them. I think maybe you try to find a Gary sign and trade scenario where you at least get back, a lower end pick or something like that.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 on my part. And then OG.
I extend him.
Okay.
But I know other people want to trade him for the entire Canadian national team from the Pacers. So,
Listen, I would see what the conversations are, as always. But I think this is similar to Pascal. You extend him, you get even more value. And I think he is still showing marginal growth, even though the ultimate product isn't fully there. But anyway, we've run out of time. That does it for us today. I've been your host, Will Lou, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Thanks once again, our producer and co-host Alex Wong. Alex, man, change the rundown. My goodness, right? It's Blake Murphy Tuesday, man. Thanks to Blake Murphy, our producer Derek Brandale, Jennifer Rolnick for helping with the YouTube stream. We will talk to you tomorrow.